Welcome to the latest episode of the Talkie Taka podcast. We're going to talk about the big game in Manchester, the Reds versus the Blues, and the Blues blew it, and the Reds had Pep Guardiola a mad. If there is anything that we can say about the top of the Premier League, it's getting very, very interesting. Chelsea are right up there, just 2 points away right now. Arsenal don't seem to want to stay up there for too long. Do we have a new top four candidate? Have Man City stepped out of the top four after God knows how long? Nottingham Forest are there. We're going to talk about all this and more this week on this week's episode of the Talkie Taka podcast. But before that, we have Ashwin and Arvind on the pod. We'll come to you first, RK. RK, how's your week been? What's your talkie moment?
Yeah, finally, it's been a good week. So my talking moment of the week will be the 115 seconds of fame. So it so happened, coincidentally that the number of seconds, I think rather you pointed this out that the number of seconds between the first and the second goal was 115 seconds exactly. So probably that's poetic retribution, so to say. A really, really memorable ending to that match. We'll speak more about it. So that's my talking moment.
Man City just can't escape it. It's everything that they do. That 115 when he showed the sixth sign against Liverpool, the 115 came back. Everything they do ends in 115. And this is the conspiracy theories of Twitter is like 1 + 1 + 5 equals 7 tala for a reason. That everything just all this just goes in circles once you get onto the internet. But yeah, coming to you, Ashwin, how's your week been? What are your talking moments?
Aside from the 115 seconds of madness, you mean? Yeah, I think it was an excellent weekend, right? It was a weekend full of narratives. Like Saturday started with Fulham dropping points, Arsenal couldn't capitalize, and then we had Gary O'Neill sacked, Forest getting their win at the very end, Spurs beating Southampton. So there were so many narratives going on. So this was an excellent Premier League weekend. But my talking moment of the week specifically is Nottingham Forest, and their two goals against Villa right at the death, and which has taken them to the fourth position, which is their best league finish. Well, not finished, but like best league position in the last 26 years. So that's brilliant from Forest. They finished 17th last season, so to be able to reach the Champions League spots, albeit after 15 games, is amazing.
All right, and coming to me, my talking moment has to be the fact that Arne Slot's Liverpool are now through to the top eight of the Champions League. So at least two games, the two knockout games, we may be able to escape. I think it's pretty much confirmed now. So we would be escaping those two knockout games. So that's a big. I don't think any Liverpool fan would have seen this coming for this season. So congratulations to the team and to Arne Slot. Now, just before we get into the big game at Manchester, your talkie moment got me thinking about a question that we got on the podcast. So Swag, our erstwhile host and long-time contributor, had a question for us for the pod. With Nottingham Forest doing so well, Everton doing so well last year and staying pretty safe this year, and the decision that the league has taken on the Leicester City FFP charges, what do you guys think? Do you think it just makes sense to spend as much as you want, take a penalty, and just reap the benefits of that in the future years, like what Forest seem to be doing now?
It has played out that way, right? But I think it's obviously a very dangerous game to play. Like Forest signed some 24 players last season, if I'm not wrong. And like, obviously not all of those 24 players have panned out in the way they would have hoped to. For all you know, the Premier League might be tightening the rules even further going forward. So it's not like, you can just get away with it. I feel that over the course of next few years, there will be more clubs who will be under that ambit. I think United definitely are very close to it. Chelsea are also pretty close to it. So it's just going to get even tougher, I feel, to, get away with all of this.
I mean, for large periods last season, we all thought Everton are done. So it's awesomely dangerous gambit if they're actually wanting to try that.
There were points of the season where they could have finished in the top eight as well. And yes, with the points penalty, and they kind of dropped off later, so they were just like reasonably safe. But they were having a good season, which is why I think they had the bravado to take on that penalty, and they didn't really appeal it and things like that. And then even Leicester City, right? They got off on such a weird technicality that, hey, I was in the championship, so technically the Premier League does not have jurisdiction. I mean, it's some of this is so comical, but Nottingham Forest is really one of the edge cases of they got punished and they're soaring in the Premier League right now. So more on that to come. We'll see if more clubs are flirting with the PSR line and how it impacts them. But let's get right into the big game. So we took a poll in the WhatsApp group before the game, and a lot of people were wondering who's going to come out on top. I think we all agreed that Man City should be favorites, but RK, I think I mentioned that it just takes moments against this Man City team. You don't need a great structure, you don't need a great system, you don't need to tactically outsmart them over 90 minutes. Individual players and individual moments are enough against this Man City team because there are mistakes in there. And that's what happened. I don't think Manchester United were at their creative best or controlling best in the game. Similar to Arsenal, it was reasonably safe in the first half and not too much created, but not too much conceded. But those two absolute moments over 115 seconds and the entire game changed and Pep Guardiola's season changed. So, RK, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start with those, 115 seconds because it seemed like for all their foibles, City will look reasonably comfortable, if not totally comfortable, and it seemed like okay, they are going towards seeing it out, and then the complete narrative would have changed despite some kind of silver linings, positives for United. Even then, the whole story would have been about Pep finally getting 3 points, United not being able to beat City and all that. And suddenly, I don't know what Matthews Nunes was thinking at that point in time. First, he makes a weird back pass, which is cut out, and then Ahmad is not able to find a direct route to goal. He's just trying to find the best option, and this guy comes in and just wipes him off his feet. It's just so comical, in the replay, seeing Pep's reaction. So you see the whole line of sight from Matthews Nunes to the touchline and all. Like there are some 3 or 4 people in the line of sight. Pep is one of them. Then I think there's one of the City players. Everyone is holding their head in their hands, and everyone knows it's a penalty. And as soon as that goal happens, you know, I mean, as fans, we were all like, we knew that, something can happen. This is the time as good as any to find a winner. And, as luck would have it, Lisandro found that space in between the centre backs where Ahmad was making a run. I think even that was poor defending. Probably either the keeper kind of steps out or, they, just mark that space better. And, even Guardiola could have cleared that. Though I don't blame him completely, but yeah, I mean, it was such a dramatic end to the game. It's so typical of some of these matches that United have played recently as well. Over the course of the match, it was, as you said, very similar to the Arsenal game. I would still defensively take a lot of positives because in both the games against Arsenal and City, United pressed very well. It's not like old United games away at City where under Ole and Ten Hag where it's very very reactive. You sit back, concede position, and wait for your chances. It was more proactive in terms of the press, like defensively much more proactive, winning the ball higher up, committing less mistakes. But of course, like old problems still coming up, or I wouldn't say old problems, but recent problems under Amorim. We conceded from a set piece, despite Guardiola, finally choosing not to take direct corners a lot. Even then, from one of the short corners, we conceded a goal. So that weakness continues to persist. However, I would say pressing is a big positive. Second half, I think we did open up a bit. We were able to create better chances. Probably some of Ahmad's runs on offsides were not good enough. Otherwise, we would have had even better XG. I also like the tactic that he employed where he put Lisandro on KDB. So, like one of the centre backs was pushing up high, effectively, kind of like stopping City from having that numerical superiority in the midfield. So, some good signs, but of course, at the end of it, it was all about the drama, the euphoria at the end of it.
So I think the game changed and Amad Diallo changed that game. It was an individual performance that took that 3 points from the clutches of defeat. I'm coming to you, Ashwin. Amad Diallo now has 6 assists in the league. He's number 3rd in the assist table for the league behind Saka and Salah. He's looked like one of the creative best players in the team. And this is a week where we've had a lot of drama. There's no drama. There's no week without drama around Marcus Rashford. So there's a lot of drama happening at Manchester United with Rashford making some comments. And I think he also said that maybe he's ready for a new challenge. And with Amad Diallo and Garnacho, and the future looks a little bit rosy. Is it time? Is it time to cut ties?
It is time to cut ties. Yeah, probably yes. But I think before even I go into Marcus Rashford, I think it was really important for Ruben Amorim to win this game and to make a statement. Of course, there was some disciplinary action that he had taken on ahead of this game. And for a Manchester born lad to not play a Manchester derby, I think there couldn't be a bigger disciplinary action than that, right? So as far as Rashford is concerned, we have been seeing this with various managers. I think even with Ten Hag, this time last season he had that Belfast night out and he was, he was benched or at least not in the squad for a while. And then he has played all the Premier League games till this point, but of course he hasn't been contributing. He's not the kind of person who helps defensively. And there have been times where we'll be on our WhatsApp group and we'll be like, "Oh, fucking get Anthony on because at least he'll go and track back," and that's not what Rashford is doing. So I think time has come for Rashford to come to terms with the fact that if you need to be a Manchester United first team player, you need to have a better performance, a more all-round performance, and I don't think he wants to do that. So, and the comments that came after the game where he was like, I move on, I've done a lot for the club, and I'm ready for a new challenge. I think it's not very professional, right? Like, had we lost the game and those comments had come out, like it wouldn't have reflected that well on Amorim as well. So I think it is definitely time for us to cut ties in some sense. It will help from a PSR perspective. I know we spoke about that earlier because this will be pure profit. So I would say, I mean, it's sad that an academy player is didn't cut it, but we'll probably need to cash.
Yeah, the timing is also, so weird. Right after the game, he gives the interview. It's definitely not coming off well. I don't know if United can do without him in terms of squad depth, the number of fixtures that are there all through the season, playing every 3 or 4 days. While, of course, it's the right decision to offload him at the end of the season. If there is any talk of January, I think that needs to be, cut out because United do need depth, and I think Amorim also in his recent press conference, he's been making the right noises in terms of saying that this guy is capable of so much more, and he wants him in the squad and stuff like that. So now, that kind of puts the ball back in Rashford's court. Like, if he tries to leave in January window, it will look as if Rash, forced his way out rather than the manager like forcing him out. Of course, all semantics, but I think United should be careful of squad depth.
My
Un-
bigger worry with all of this is that Alejandro Garnacho is also dropped for this one. And we know for a fact that Rashford, Sancho, Lingard, they had this holy trinity. They're like the best of friends and like they don't have the best of attitudes. And I just don't want this attitude to rub on someone as young, as impressionable as Alejandro Garnacho as well. I know I agree with you that January is probably not the right time to sell. And in all fairness, like no club would be able to buy Rashford as well at this point. Maybe PSG, but we have already ruled out PSG. But I think end of season is probably where we are looking at as far as cashing on him is concerned.
Yeah,
yeah,
Garnacho.
so
Yeah.
sorry, I don't know how long, I don't know how much money United are going to get for Ashford at this point of time. He's 27. He's not really the top talent that he once was. So the wages, of course, are a concern, but I don't think it's going to be a case where clubs aren't lining up because I think realistically there should be a lot of clubs who can afford somebody like him, at least the fees. Now, obviously, wages are different. But again, attitude is such an important thing, right? And we talked about attitude. He was on fire all through the game. Not perhaps the most clinical player that you would see in the number 9 position, but he was absolutely ready for a fight all through the game. And I'm sure that's what the fans are looking to see. They want that effort and everything that Rashford has been criticized of. The opposite of that.
Yeah.
It was, and apparently has deleted that now. So maybe his PR team is on to. Yeah. Hojlund, I think I won't. I don't think I have anything bad to say against Hojlund because if you look at the Europa League games, that's where he has been excelling quite a bit. Now, of course, we need to understand he is a very young striker, so he will take his time. The system is very much suited for Hojlund as well, so I'm expecting him to be firing in once once the players understand the system, once everyone knows exactly how to play, which position to play, when to make that pass. There was a really good pass that he made for Bruno Fernandes and he did not finish that, but up till that point I think the game itself was so bad that you can't really say that one particular player was not playing that well. I really like his attitude, definitely. I think he's got that fire in his belly as well. And even before that, in the first half, I think he was trying to man mark Haaland, right? And you could see that he was really up for it. So yeah, we need more players like that in the team for sure.
I think also the system or the manager also prioritizes people who work hard. Maybe Ten Hag also did when he came in, but over time probably that standard started to go down as he started to depend more on players and less on his system, right? So I think other players are also benefiting. Maguire had a very good performance, center of the back three, and people always knew that that should work out well for him. Mazraoui continues to impress. He also is someone like Ahmad who is capable of playing different positions. So Ahmad has played wing back as well as right-sided number 10. Mazrao is able to play right-sided centre-back in some games, and he also plays like the wing-back role when needed. So he's been pretty good, and he struck up a good partnership with people around him. Ugarte, of course, has prior with Amorim. He's continued to, his form since the root days. So there are some good performances, and there is also talk now of whether Maguire needs to extend or should United extend Maguire. My personal feel is probably not. We should try to cash in whatever chance there is. But yeah, it's good to see certain people back in the reckoning as well.
All right, and it gets from bad to really bad to worse for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. I don't think anybody saw that result coming, especially given that they were 1-0 up in the game. So yeah, it's going to be hard for them to get their season back on track. Absolute requirement would be to finish in the top four, and I think we're all confident that they will. We all are so conditioned to believe that there will be a City run that comes somewhere in the season, although it's looking hard to see where that will come from right now. Moving on to other people around the top of the league, Liverpool were in action and they went down to 10 men and were down a goal against Fulham. They dropped points against Fulham at home, which is always bad news. But somehow the feeling is quite positive at Anfield and at Liverpool, because it was a really good performance with 10 men. It took me some time to. There was a long part in the game where I forgot that we were down to 10 men. Also have to applaud Arne Slot for the attitude and the tactics that he employed after we went down. We didn't bring on that other defender and take off an attacker or a midfielder. He first tried to push Cody Gakpo to left back. Quickly found out that that wasn't working, and then pushed Gravenberg to almost like a centre back, and they maintained control of that game, created a lot of chances. Unfortunately, the only chances that Fulham got, they actually ended up scoring with, and Liverpool would be disappointed that they didn't win that game. That's, I guess, a great compliment to the team and the way that Arne Slot has coached them. Just one shout out to Ryan Gravenberg. I cannot, from a weakness of a position where we went for a target and we didn't get him, Zubimendi, and it was like that was the number one area of priority for the manager and the recruitment team. I think we found one of the best midfielders now that we can ask for, that's going around. And he's 22 years old. I just can't get over the fact that he's 22 years old. Sometimes I have to remind myself that he's so young. He's looking incredible, and I think any midfielder we sign now has to be a potential backup or a rotation option, because he's definitely here to stay. What did you guys make of Liverpool?
Yeah, I think like I was very, kind of surprised also with the ambition that Slot showed, because over the last few months, that's not the first word that comes to mind when you think of him. It's more, he's more, kind of measured, control, so it's kind of trying to eliminate risk. But when we saw the red card, I think all of us, at least I was surprised seeing the kind of shape that he's not, bringing on another center back, as you said. So that was a big surprise, and also the way that they took the initiative. It was a kind of throwback to Klopp, because rather I would say it was a bit risky. Yeah, the XG that Fulham finally created was probably, as you said, they scored with their only chances, but they had so many opportunities. If you look at basically key passes or stuff like that, where they got themselves into the right position, probably Liverpool were risking that the way that they were attacking, especially in the second half. So Fulham had a lot of opportunities, but it felt like Liverpool, were wanting it. It was very deliberate that Liverpool wanted to go for the win. So the attitude was kind of, I think what came out for me, at least watching the game, I couldn't feel that it's a 10 versus 11 contest. If at all, probably Anfield crowd helped it become, kind of like 11 versus 11. I heard the commentators say that, it's always regarded at such grounds that, the crowd is 12th man. So today it was the 11th man is what he said, and that felt right. Probably that helped, but it felt like, the attitude was like, we are at home and we want the 3 points, whatever the scenario is. So that attitude was surprising from Slot, but it was also kind of and it felt like, okay, this is a team who's going to be in the title race. It's they're not going away anywhere. I mean, if at all we can call it a race. But also, just a thing on Fulham, I think great entertainment. I was very impressed with Robinson. I mean, that is what you look for when you talk of work ethic, commitment. The guy defends against Salah and then makes the sprint all the way across. He had Arnold properly on his toes. It was an entertaining game, I think, end to end. Like there are more players in Fulham who caught the eye, but like probably Robinson was the guy, big
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah, and he has been one of the best players in Fulham for a while now. In fact, I've been such a big fan of his, and I've been, of course, he also got the red card, Robertson, but he reminded me of a young Andy Robertson in the fact that he's just non-stop action, running all the time during the game. And also very attack minded in that sense. So he actually, I've thought about him many times as a potential replacement until I realized he's already 27 years old. That was a bit of a shock for me. I feel like he's only been around for a couple of years. But yeah, great player. I think Fulham are becoming a serious team. They obviously took points of Arsenal last week as well. And that is also a few hiccups now. The hiccup against Newcastle 3-3, where Liverpool conceded at the last minute. And a hiccup, I'm going to call it a hiccup, although it felt very positive after the game at Anfield because of the ambition and mindset that Liverpool showed, a real championship mentality that the coach showed. But it is a setback, and it's being helped by the fact that Arsenal aren't really making the most of these setbacks. They dropped points again. So that's the second week in a row where Liverpool have dropped points and Arsenal have dropped points as well. So Man City are in trouble. Arsenal are not looking too great either. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Arsenal next week. But this week, let's talk about the Champions League. So now we're technically at this time the Champions League group stage should be over by now, but it's not a usual Champions League season. We have 2 more game weeks and it's not a group stage, so we still don't know what the hell is happening. There was all sorts of permutations and combinations of who you're going to face and which teams are you likely to face. So Liverpool were top of the league and their potential opponents at one stage last week were Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, AC Milan and some other team. So I mean, it's all looking a bit crazy and we're not sure what the draws are going to be and how the teams are going to look, but it's beginning to take a little bit of shape now. And it's been 6 games. We can't call Aston Villa or Brest a fluke anymore. They're still right up there. They're serious contenders for qualification now. What do you guys make of what's happening in the Champions League?
It's definitely I think this format will take a bit of getting used to. It's definitely a welcome change. I know we discussed this in our group as well. It's great to see the top teams playing against each other as well. So for next week, for example, we have PSG versus Man City, and both of them are struggling in the Champions League. PSG are actually not even in the playoff spot, which is wild. Like, it is so difficult not to get off this table, if I can call it that. I think Barcelona are doing really well. They got their win against Dortmund as well. Brest still there, which could be this year's fairy tale. Like, I remember back in the days we used to say this about another team from France, Monaco, if you remember. So maybe they do it there. And a really incredible game between Atalanta and Real Madrid, which was just similar to the Fulham and Liverpool game, which was very end to end. Even though one could argue that Atalanta deserved the 3 points, but then Madrid doing what Madrid do in the Champions League. So yeah, I think aside from Liverpool and potentially Barcelona, none of the other sides have really shown that they are that consistent. Of course, Arsenal are there as well, and Villa there and thereabouts. But at this point, I would have expected to see maybe the likes of City and PSG and some of these other teams higher up in the table. So yeah, it has definitely given a few surprises.
Yeah, I think main highlights for me is that 3 English teams are there in the top 5. If those three eventually, obviously, they will qualify for the top 8 at this rate. That helps us in terms of coefficient and top 5. That I'm not hoping for United, obviously, but if any hope, it can.
Of course, RK. Of course, you're not hoping for United.
It's still 13th or 12th or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a hell of a coefficient for that to work out then. Ashwin, you mentioned, RK, you mentioned 3 teams in the top 5, but it's really, really close. There's 3 points between Arsenal in 3rd and Juventus in 19th. So,
Yeah.
and it's just 3 points. So one game week could just complete. I guess this is what we'll need to get used to. It's like, yes, we are looking at a potentially settle top 8, but it's not at all settled. It's one game, one result can be the difference between going from 19th to the top 8 or the top 5 even.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess in that sense, it's going to be a really exciting last 2 game weeks because
Yeah.
anything can happen, and it's going to be a major 18 game simultaneous. I would actually be surprised if this top 8 kind of still stays stable in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks time.
Yeah, when I looked at the format initially, I thought jeopardy is less because you have 24 teams. It's very difficult not to qualify for the playoffs. But I guess, like the good thing is the jeopardy is more about the top 8 now. Like you can do as well as you want. You can be like you have done as well as Arsenal and Villa have done so far, but you still can't say that okay, like we are comfortable. So that's a good place to be. And also and like another good thing is there are so many teams which are there in that 9 to 24 bucket. So it's going to throw up an interesting round of, so-called round of 32 game or whatever you call it. So, you have Juventus, you have Real Madrid, PSG, there and thereabouts. You look at 9 to 24 and it throws up so many big names. Bayern are there, the Atletico Madrid, Milan, Dortmund. So, I mean, of course, there's going to be movement, but I think, that round of, qualification for 16 might end up becoming a kind of, like a blockbuster as well. Who knows?
Yeah, just a quick correction. Juventus are actually 1 point. They're 11 points, so they are in 14th. It's Bruges who's in 19th, who has 10 points, and Arsenal on a third position with 13 points. So yeah, just 3 points between third and 19th. And yes, it's looking like a tasty round of 32. Maybe I think they're calling it the knockout round or whatever that is. But yeah, it'll be, I think, a lot of super duper clashes are possible, and I'm hoping that there are as well. Like if somebody like Brest, Lille and Aston Villa stay in the top 8, there are going to be some tasty clashes in the knockout rounds.
I think it's also important to keep the Unity League of not having any unity. So
Unify League or
unify.
something. So PSG
So
PSG can potentially go into the Unify League if they're not qualifying for the next round.
yeah, but again, it's just a couple of weeks and things can change, and PSG might end up being comfortable at the end of it as well. We never know. All right, just coming now to the week that we're looking towards. It's Spurs versus Liverpool. Now Spurs have blown hot and cold, so they did take a 2-0 lead against Chelsea and were looking quite handsome there until it all blew apart. Although they did beat Man City and they're a little bit of a bogey team for them, and they just smashed a final result at the weekend as well, albeit against a lowly team. So what do you think? Is there a potential banana skin here for Liverpool, and this could be the third potential game where they drop points, and then we would have to say the title race is well and truly on if that happens.
Yeah, I think even before that game against Liverpool, they're playing United in the Carabao Cup as well, right? So, and I think Liverpool have some low league opponents, so they can afford to rest. Or are they even in the Carabao or something of that sort, right?
It's Southampton, so as low as
So
this league goes.
So anyways, like I mean, although both teams are playing, I think the fact that Ange would probably want to go after the Carabao Cup means that he would play his best players. So that might have some bearing into the game as well. As far as the game in itself is concerned, you don't know anything with Spurs. Like one day they could fucking play like Real Madrid, and the next day they could play like, I don't know, Man City maybe, in current form.
Ouch.
So I think it is definitely a banana peel in the sense that it's a big six team. But with the way Liverpool are going at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like another mauling that Spurs get at the hands of Liverpool.
So the Spurs Chelsea one was home at Spurs, right? And it was pretty dominant from Chelsea after a point. Despite Spurs being 2-0 up, I think Spurs are really suffering for not having fit centre backs. And even if they had, I think the tactics that Spurs have are so naive. I think compared to the way that Spurs play, knowing only one way, whatever happens, the sweet naive Spurs way. Slot is too street smart, too adaptable. We have seen him throw the gauntlet, show that kind of bravado against in the previous game, and we have seen him kind of control games, wait for his chance. So I think Liverpool under Slot are so unpredictable that they can tailor themselves and get the result they need. I think Spurs are really really up against it, and of course, if Liverpool still end up dropping points, like you can compare it in a way to the Newcastle game as well, because Newcastle also have similar troubles on the transition, and then they managed to get a point. So you never know in the Premier League. So I mean, but I don't see beyond. I'm much more intrigued about the City game, to be honest, because what happens if Pep struggles again? Is it something to do with the players and the coach knowing that these charges are going to stick? Sometimes it feels like these guys are completely downbeat because of that as well. So what do you guys think?
I don't think players are really paying attention to what's going to happen in that hearing. I really don't think that that's on their mind. But yes, I do think that once you're in a rut, it's hard to get out of that. Pep has to really show some Pep Guardiola like creativity to maybe change something up in training, play a different system, perhaps try to get the players to relearn something to get some of their mojo back, because currently it's a little bit of they're not able to get out of that ditch that they're in. Yeah, and Villa's not a great team to play, although they've not been consistent in the Premier League and they've been pretty decent in the Champions League. They've not been a great team in the Premier League. It's still a banana skin of a game, no matter when you play Villa. So, and City, it's not the good time for them to playing a potential banana skin team. They've just had banana skins for the last 8 games consistently. So it's a bit of a, and Athletic just put out an article tonight saying City, is Pep Guardiola actually thinking of leaving? He's talked about it, and what does this mean and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, these narratives are going to run for the entire season now.
I think one thing that would work for Pep is obviously Foden is now fully back. Kevin De Bruyne is back as well. John Stones is also back. So like he's getting his best players back into the team. So that is definitely going to help. The one main allegation that is always thrown at Pep is that he doesn't. His plan is so good that he doesn't seem to have a plan B, right? So you have the likes of Grealish and like Savinho, whatever his name is. Like these are wingers that could help you change the system as well, but he chose not to use them against United, where he could have easily done that against the likes of Dalo, for example. So I think Pep will stick to his principles still, and the fact that he has his best players available might work in his favor, especially with Villa not really performing at the levels that they performed last time out. But yeah, it will be an interesting game for sure.
All right, couple of tasty games for us to watch in the Premier League this weekend, and we'll be back next week to talk about what happened at the top of the table clashes. We'll also be talking about Arsenal, and perhaps this will be the week where Arsenal come over the line. They have a reasonably winnable fixture as well. So we'll find out what happens. And of course, Chelsea are on fire, so I don't expect them to slow down anytime soon. So it's all getting a little exciting at the top of the league. And all the jinxing that these guys have done about how it's a one-team race and there is no race and all of that, it's all coming to a boil now at least. So we'll see where we are at the end of in the middle of next week. And until then, listeners, have a great week.